Okay, so the Rdsp has been around for almost 10 years. I've been speaking with a few of you. Some of you already have one for your child. That's a good thing, believe me. It is a lucrative savings plan for Canadians with a severe and prolonged disability. We're going to look at Rdsps and the Canada Disability Savings Grant and Bond and how they operate. Most importantly, though, for those of you who haven't opened one yet, we will go through the step-by-step process of opening an Rdsp at a financial institution. I'm sure when you opened yours, you had some challenges. Yes. Okay, I know this because this is one of the common complaints that we hear. I want you to all be knowledgeable about Rdsps and be able to help other Canadians other than your own children or yourselves and their families help open one for another Canadian with a disability. So help you to navigate the complexities in opening and managing an Rdsp. So a bit of historical background. Savings plans for people with disabilities began to get traction in the early 1980s. In the second half of the 20th century, the life expectancy of people with disabilities had grown, along with the life expectancy of all Canadians, and more people with disabilities began to outlive their parents. Parents of children with disabilities were looking for ways to ensure that their loved ones were cared for after their passing. This was one of the triggers for the development of the Henson Trust in the late 1980s. I'm sure some of you have heard of the Henson Trust. Disability groups were lobbying governments to ensure that persons with disabilities were not forgotten. In 2006, the then Minister of Finance, Jim Flaherty, created an advisory committee whose mandate was to examine ways to help parents and grandparents save for the long-term financial security of a child with a severe disability. Their report was tabled in the House of Commons in December 2006, and Rdsps were announced a few months later in Budget 2007. They became available to Canadians in 2008. The enabling legislation was passed in July of 2008, and Rdsps themselves were first available on December 2nd, 2008. Since then, the Government of Canada has improved the Rdsp with the implementation of initiatives such as Carry Forward, Rsp and Rsp Rollovers, the ability to designate an Rdsp to a specified disability savings plan, and allowing plans to remain open with the loss of DTC, as well as increasing access to funds. Oh, wrong way. Okay. So, investment options. There are really two for people with disabilities. A Henson Trust, sometimes called an absolute discretionary trust in Canadian law, is a type of trust designed to benefit disabled persons. Specifically, it protects the assets, typically an inheritance, of the disabled person, as well as the right to collect government benefits and entitlements. The key provision of a Henson Trust is that the trustee has absolute discretion in determining whether to use the trust assets to provide assistance to the beneficiary and in what quantity. As such, the assets do not vest with the beneficiary and are not used to deny means-tested government benefits such as Ontario Disability Support payments. However, payments made to the beneficiary from the trust are used in means testing, so the trustee must be aware of these limits. It used to be $6,000 annually. It is now $40,000. So you can spend that money, but it's got to be spent. It can't remain in a bank account. Talk to someone from ODSP about the rules around that. It has changed recently. Okay? The Henson Trust is available in every province and territory in Canada except for Alberta. They are working on legislation for it there. On the other hand, assets held in an Rdsp are exempt from means testing for disability support payments in all Canadian jurisdictions. This includes payments from the Rdsp, with the exception of 3 provinces: Prince Edward Island, New Brunswick, and Quebec. I know that in Quebec you are allowed up to $900 a month to come from your Rdsp without affecting Quebec support payments. Every other province, there's nothing except for New Brunswick and Prince Edward Island, and I don't know what the values are there. Anyway, in Ontario, it's completely exempt. Okay, each province allows some amount to be paid from an Rdsp without affecting disability support payments. However, in those 3 provinces, once a certain threshold is reached, disability support payments are lowered. Oh, I keep hitting the wrong one. So, what is a registered disability savings plan? I like to think of it as an RRSP for people with disabilities. However, it's not the same. Earnings grow tax-free like an RRSP. But unlike an RRSP, contributions are after-tax dollars and do not lower the annual income you report on your income tax return. These contributions are not taxed when withdrawn. Contributions in an RRSP are. Okay? However, earnings in the Rdsp will be taxed, but only when paid to the beneficiary. All funds in the Rdsp are the property of the beneficiary, and when withdrawn, can be used for whatever the beneficiary wants. The Rdsp provides peace of mind for parents and others and helps them plan for the financial security of a family member with a disability, and it is a legal contract between the holder and the financial institution that operates for the sole benefit of the beneficiary. So who can set up an Rdsp? The holder sets up the Rdsp. It is the individual, organization, or entity that enters into the contract with the financial institution. The individual or organization is responsible for the day-to-day operation of the Rdsp, including overseeing all contributions made to the plan and directing any withdrawal from the plan. When a plan is first opened for a beneficiary, if the beneficiary is the age of majority, 18 or over in most jurisdictions, and is competent to administer their own affairs, the holder must be the beneficiary. So it must be the individual with the disability. If that individual is 18 or over and competent. When the beneficiary is the age of majority but deemed to be legally incompetent, i.e. unable to manage their own affairs, the holder must then be the individual, organization, or entity legally responsible for the beneficiary as appointed by a court of law in that jurisdiction. This causes problems, doesn't it? Okay? However, if there is no one who has been appointed to be legally responsible for the beneficiary, there is a temporary measure to allow a qualified family member, that is a parent, a spouse, or a common law partner, to be the holder. Okay? This is important, and this is why I think you should all go to see wills and estates, because at a certain point, if you are the holder, you're going to have to make sure that before you pass, you have someone in place to legally operate that plan for your child if your child isn't able to. Okay. When the beneficiary is not the age of majority, the holder must be the parent or parents, so it can be both mom and dad, or the individual organization that is legally responsible for the beneficiary as appointed by a court of law in that jurisdiction. When the beneficiary reaches the age of majority, they can be added as the holder or a co-holder with mom and dad. Okay? The federal government is encouraging provincial jurisdictions to institute laws like those in BC, where an individual with a disability may set up a representation agreement where one or more individuals are named as representatives. These individuals can also be named as representatives for a particular activity, As such, the beneficiary would be named as holder and would receive support and direction from these representatives to administer the RDSP. Hasn't happened in Ontario yet, but you guys have to advocate for it. Okay, who qualifies for an RDSP? The beneficiary is the individual with a severe and prolonged disability who will receive all the funds accumulated in the RDSP. At the time the contract is open, the beneficiary must be DTC eligible. You all know what the DTC is? Your children are all eligible? Okay, disability tax credit. We'll get into that a bit later. At the time the contract is open, the beneficiary must be resident in Canada, except if the new contract is as a result of a transfer. At the time the contract is open, the beneficiary must be under the age of 60. We say that it's actually the contract must be opened on or before December 31st of the year in which the beneficiary turns 59. Okay, I'm going to be repeating that same thing but talking about 49 later. There can only be one RDSP at any given time for a beneficiary. There can only be one beneficiary named to any RDSP, except in the case of transfer when there will be two open for one beneficiary at the same time as the funds go from one to the other. Okay, what we really want to talk about is opening an RDSP. The basic requirements are quite simple. It can be open for someone who is a Canadian resident, has a social insurance number, and is eligible for the disability tax credit. So even if your child is 3 years old, you go to ESDC and apply for a social insurance number. Okay? We have already talked about some of the age restrictions and the actual contract. So, residency. As a rule of thumb, anyone living in Canada and paying income tax is qualified to open an RDSP, or the child of anyone living in Canada and paying income tax. This includes Canadian citizens, landed immigrants, and those with work visas living in Canada, living and working in Canada. This is a bit of a general statement. I just look here, I expect all of you qualify. If you are unsure of the status of the beneficiary, please check with the Canada Revenue Agency. Canadians living overseas may also qualify, such as those working in the military or the foreign service. And we validate residency of all beneficiaries through the Canada Revenue Agency. Okay, social insurance number is a key piece of information to validate identity. Beneficiary and the holder, i.e. mom and dad if they're the holder, must provide a valid SIN. And we validate all beneficiaries and holders through the Social Insurance Registry. If you have any questions, please contact your Service Canada office. If you are in a situation where the holder is an organization such as a Children's Aid Society, their CRA business number is required instead of a social insurance number. Okay, the challenge. Opening an RDSP requires the disability tax credit. Being accorded the disability tax credit, or DTC, is a basic requirement for opening an RDSP. The disabled individual or their representative must complete Part A of Form T2201. You can find this form on CRA's website. Has anyone here filled it out before? A lot of you? Help others. It's.
Do you have to fill it out again?
No. Once you have the DTC, that's it. We go to CRA and check. Okay?
The DTC has an expiry date.
Then you have to renew it when it expires. Okay? And I would suggest if it has an expiry date, do it several months before the expiry date. Yes?
When they turn 18, you have to do it again? Or is that
It depends on the condition, okay? DTC is one of these weird and wonderful things. Some individuals will be given it for their lifetime, regardless of their age. If you have juvenile diabetes, you are probably going to get it until 18, and you must reapply. when you turn 18. Certain other conditions, you will be given the DTC for a period of, say, 5 years or 7 years or 3 years, and when that period is up, you have to reapply. Okay? So it's one of these things, it is a challenge. Okay? So Part B of the form is the important part. Yes?
Sorry, who would notify, or how would we know if there is a time frame?
They send, when you apply for the disability tax credit, they send you a DTC allow letter. And in that, it will tell you whether it's for a fixed period of time or a lifetime. Okay? As well, when you claim the DTC on your income tax, the year before it will expire, when you get your notice of assessment, it will say in there that it's expiring next year. The next year, you will go and claim the DTC, and in your notice of assessment, they will say, this beneficiary no longer qualifies for the DTC. So those are a couple of other ways that they will advise you. Okay? So Part B of the form is the important part. And this is what is used to determine if the individual qualifies for the DTC. It is completed by the medical professional. And there's a whole bunch of things that make someone qualify for the DTC. 14 hours of life-saving therapy a week. If you're blind, if you have problems evacuating, if you have problems feeding yourself, if you have mobility problems, etc., or a combination of these. This is determined by CRA. If you do apply, make sure that your doctor makes it retroactive. If you're just applying now and your child's had a condition their whole life, make sure it's retroactive to when they were born or when they acquired the condition. Okay? Because the DTC can be retroactive and it will entitle the individual with a disability to the Canada Disability Savings Grant and Bond for previous years. Okay, the DTC is a non-refundable tax credit. I'm not from CRA. I'm giving you some information on this. If you want in-depth information, go to CRA. But it helps persons with disabilities or their supporting persons. Mom and dad can claim it for children, even if their child is over the age of 18. Okay? Their supporting persons reduce the amount of income tax they may have to pay. An individual may claim the disability amount once they are eligible for the DTC. As well, if you have a child, the child disability benefit is a tax-free benefit of up to $224.58 per month or $2,685 per year for families that care for a child under 18 who has a severe and prolonged impairment of their physical and or mental functions. So, the DTC gets you other things. It gets you the Rsp, it gets you the tax credit itself, which is almost $8,000. You can lower your income by about $8,000 a year, which works out to be $1,500, $2,000 a year, somewhere around there, maybe more depending on your particular circumstance, as well as the child disability benefit. Yes?
The child disability benefit based on income?
You'll have to ask CRA that. I believe it is. Yeah, most of these tax benefits are based on income. Okay? So, the Canada Disability Savings Grant and Bond entitlements accrue for any year the beneficiary was DTC eligible. Oh, I always say visit your financial planner or financial institution. So, you all deal with a bank or a credit union or some financial institution. Decide which one you wish to deal with and make an appointment with them. Phone them up and make an appointment. I suggest you prepare for the appointment. Go to their webpage and search Rdsp. The 5 big banks offer them. A number of credit unions offer them. There are 14 different issuers across Canada. I have a list of 1-800 numbers for these financial institutions. If you need them, come and see me afterwards and get one. We suggest When you go in with the financial planner at that meeting, you call this 1-800 number. Why? I'm going to tell you a little story about RDSPs. We are at about 160,000 RDSPs across Canada right now. That's in 10 years. That means 16,000 a year. The 5 big banks, and I'm not including investors, but the 5 big banks have how many branches across Canada? It's about 8,000. That means each branch may open 2 RDSPs a year. They're not very knowledgeable about them. And you've opened one and they weren't very knowledgeable. The way they operate, they have people in a central location who are very well trained, very well informed, can give you all the information. So you go into your branch, you deal with your financial planner, and you say, dial this number. And then you won't get the runaround. Okay? I have the list of 1-800 numbers here. If you need one, come and get one. Yes?
I went to Scotiabank. I had an account there. They know nothing about that, and they.
I have the 1-800 number for them. So you go in and you say
a number and say open online. I said how I can.
Okay, well,
online.
they can help you, but what I suggest, you go to Scotia, you ask to see a financial planner, go into the office and say, dial this number, I want to open an RDSP. Okay? And then they have someone very knowledgeable. I think Scotia, it's in Toronto. BMO, it's in Montreal. RBC, it's in Montreal, I believe. They're different places, and they have very knowledgeable people who will take you through the whole process. Okay? So, many branch staff are unaware of the RDSP or know little about it. This is why it is important to bring their 1-800 number for RDSPs with you. Okay? So, there are application forms to fill out. Sorry, I'm part of the Government of Canada, so there are lots of application forms. Some of you have already been through it. First, there's the financial institutions application form. It is used to establish the RDSP. In order to receive the Canada Disability Savings Grant and Bond that the government will add to the RDSP, there's a separate application form that must be filled out. If the beneficiary is under the age of 18, this form must be completed and signed by the holder, i.e. mom and dad, or the individual or organization legally responsible for the beneficiary, because it's their income that is used to determine grant and bond. If the beneficiary is 18, they must complete this form. If there are co-holders, there's an Annex A that must be completed. If the beneficiary is under 18, Annex B must be completed. If the beneficiary is over 18 but wishes to access grant and bond from prior years when they were under 18, Annex B must be completed. It goes on and on. 1-800, they know. Okay? The big tip, right, Yasmin? The big tip, 1-800, they know. They'll make sure you get all the forms completed, okay? And no they may ask for a contribution. Once you get all the forms, make a contribution, but you can get the bond without making a contribution.
That's an important part.
Okay? And here's the list, but I have them printed out here, so come and see me afterwards.
That's perfect. Thank you for that.
Okay. Okay. Now, let's talk about the RDSP itself. You heard some of this. The holder of the RDSP, that's going to be, for the most part, mom and dad, is responsible for the day-to-day operation of the plan. Anyone who has written permission from the plan holder can contribute. There is no annual contribution limit, but there is a lifetime contribution limit of $200,000. This includes all regular contributions and something we're going to talk about a bit later, the rollover funds from an RRSP or an RESP. Okay. Canada Disability Savings Grant. It's not just your money that goes in there. Filing income taxes is important for everyone and gives access to other benefits such as the Canada Child Benefit, the Goods and Service Tax Refund, Old Age Security, etc. The Canada Disability Savings Program that I work for uses beneficiaries' family income to calculate entitlements for the Canada Disability Savings Grant and the Canada Disability Savings Bond. Yes?
Is the grant, is that included in the 200,000 contribution?
No.
Or it's not?
No.
Okay.
Okay. Family income is validated with information held by CRA and is based on filed income tax returns. We look at income, so we're in 2017. We actually look at income for the 2015 taxation year for entitlements this year. This is important, okay? Parental income is used to determine entitlements up to and including the year the beneficiary turns 18. Okay? The beneficiary's income is used beginning the year in which they turn 19. So, that means even if it's a zero return, the beneficiary should file income tax for the year in which they turn 17. So if your child is 19 in 2017, you go back and file an income tax return for your child for 2015, the year in which they turn 17, even if it's zero. This is important because the matching rate we give will be better and they will qualify for more bond.
Is that because it's based on parental income?
It's based on parental income up to and including the year they turn 18. The year they turn 19, it's their own income. But the income we use is their income from 2 years ago. Okay? So the year they turn 17. So they turned 17 in 2015. So in April 2016, you got to file income tax for them for 2015. And we're going to use that this year for their entitlement this year. Okay? This is just the way it works. We use income from 2 years ago for this year's entitlement.
That's me, 18 years old, you started tax.
Okay, your child's 18 this year?
No, I mean, if the 18 this year, we can file.
You can no, you can file income tax before that if you wish, okay?
Oh, so-
And what I'm saying, the year your child turns 17, file income tax for them that year,
okay.
even if it's zero.
Oh, you can-
Just file income tax because we only go by what's on file.
I
Yes.
just wondered if you'd be good enough to review the reason behind filing the income tax at age 17.
Okay,
Do
we're,
that again.
yeah, okay. We base this year's entitlements on income tax filed 2 years ago. So 2017's entitlements are based on income earned in 2015. Okay? In 2017, if your child turns 19, it is based on their income. But we need their income from the year they turned 17 back in 2015. So, you file an income tax return, even if it's zero, for them for that year. Okay?
Now, what about if the child is much older,
It's still their income.
still?
It's still their income.
Go back to 2065?
If need be, yes, you can. Yes.
Would you be able to do, say, 17, 18, and 19, although say the child is 28?
Okay,
It'd
the
be on
child's
that.
28 this year, so they turned 28 this year? Okay, so they turned 18 in 2008. Yes, so actually,
2006, I gotta go back.
yeah, you need to file income tax for them for 2006. You should have for 2007, the year they turned 19, so that would cover the year they were 18. If you haven't,
You
do
go
it.
back? You
Yeah,
still go back
yeah.
to 0?
You might have to speak to CRA. They might not allow you to go back more than 10 years, but try.
Okay.
But try. Okay? It'll give you a bit of a benefit.
Right.
Okay? Okay. Oh, wrong way. Okay, so the grant is something that we pay, the Canada Disability Savings Program pays, and it's on contributions that are made to the RDSP. And grant entitlements accrue annually for every year the beneficiary is DTC eligible, starting from 2008. These entitlements are based on income. When at or below a certain threshold, it is $91,831 for 2017, so that means reporting $90,831,000 or less in 2015 on your income tax. The beneficiary is entitled to $3,500 for the year, the first $1,500 at 300% matching rate, so $500 gets $1,500, and the next $2,000 at a 200% matching rate, so $1,000 will get $2,000. If income is above this threshold, and in many cases, if your child's, if it's based on your income, you're going to be above that. This is why it's important to file income tax the year they turn 17. Okay? If it's above that threshold, or if there is no tax filed for a particular year, the entitlement is $1,000 matched to $1,000, a 1-to-1.
What form do you have to get in order to fill out that income tax
Go to CRA and get the income tax return form for your province for that year.
for that year?
Yes.
Go back. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. The threshold, this year it's 91,000. Okay, each year it changes, it's gone up every year. I'm not sure if I have a slide with the different thresholds for each year, but it's...
So the bond and the grant will differ, depends on the income on the specific year?
Okay, yeah, the next, there's a few slides from now and we'll have the different thresholds for each year, but the one to be really concerned about is this year. And we do it automatically, so what I suggest is you go ahead and open a plan, and I'm going to get into more about that in a few minutes. Okay, grant entitlements that have accumulated from past years are paid when a contribution is made. While the maximum entitlement is $3,500 per year, we will pay up to $10,500 in Canada Disability Savings Grant in any given year. And each year, entitlements are determined based on income and disability tax credit eligibility for the current year and previous 10 years after 2007. Entitlements are paid at the most advantageous rate for the beneficiary from the oldest to the newest. So, have you opened a plan for your child yet? No. No, and he's 28. Okay. Even if we don't worry about the year he turned 18, even if we talk about the year he turned 19, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28. Actually, okay, so he needs to file for the year he was 17 and the year he was 18. But there are 10 years of grant and bond available to him right now. Yes, okay? And we will pay the most advantageous and oldest first. So the first $500, if you get those taxes filed for 2006, the first $500 from 2008 will get $1,500. The next $500 will be used for 2009, we'll get another $1,500. The next $500 for 2010 will get another $1,500, and so on up to $10,500. We'll use all the 3-to-1 first. Then, actually 7 years will get you $10,500, a contribution of $3,500. Then, the next year, you can make a contribution, and we'll get any remaining 3-to-1s, plus the 3-to-1 from the newest year, the 2018, and then we'll go back to 10 years and start at the 2-to-1s and work our way up. Pretty good deal, isn't it? Okay, this is called carry forward. We do the most advantageous and oldest for the beneficiary first.
So we set ours up in 2009.
You're probably up to date. In 2011, we started carry forward, and you're probably up to date. Yeah, it started applying. Yeah, it started applying in 2011, and so you may have caught up. Have you received a statement of entitlement each year starting in 2012? And it tells you how much money to put in to get the maximum amount of grant available, right?
Yeah.
So if you don't have a plan open, open one. And next February, we're going to send you what we call a statement of entitlement that will tell you the most advantageous amount of money to put in to get the most amount of grant. Okay? Okay, so a beneficiary over their lifetime can receive a maximum of $70,000 in the Canada Disability Savings Grant. Oh, I keep doing the wrong one, eh? Canada Disability Savings Bond. Okay, bond entitlements, you don't need a contribution. They are again based on annual income, and they accrue every year that the beneficiary is DTC eligible starting from 2008. Again, based on income. If the beneficiary is 18 or under, it's based on mom and dad's income. 19 and older, it's based on their own income. When income is at or below a certain threshold, it's $30,000 in 2017, the beneficiary is entitled to $1,000 bond for the year. If the income is above $30,000 but below $45,916, the entitlement for the year is prorated. So, closer to 30,000, closer to 1,000, closer to 45,000, closer to 0. Once they reach 45,916 or more, the bond entitlement is 0. When an RDSP is first opened and bond applied for, a beneficiary will receive all entitlements for the current year and the previous 10 years starting from 2008. So, this year you can receive up to $10,000. Next year you can actually receive up to $11,000. In 2019, it will be for 2019 going back to 2009. So open it sooner, you'll get more money sooner. And each situation is different. Yes?
You're using that word income in a relatively broad sense. Are you talking about taxable income or are you talking about gross income?
Taxable.
Thank you. That's what I thought it was.
Yeah.
This one is RDS, is the same times or just different, separate? The bond
No.
and grant.
Bond and grant both are part of the RDSP.
Oh, if you apply that one, they give it this one too.
It doesn't matter. If your income is low, you get the bond no matter what, as long as you apply for it. Grant, you get the grant against any contribution that's made to the plan. Okay? So, 2 for the price of 1, pretty good, right?
Yeah, that's what.
Okay? So, every subsequent year, once you have applied for the bond, the beneficiary will receive their bond entitlement in the month of February. So if you open a plan this year, you'll get whatever is owed, and then next February, we automatically pay for it. There is one catch. If your beneficiary is 18 or under, the year that they turn 18, you've got to take them in and have them sign on the dotted line. Those darned application forms. Remember I talked about them again? At age 18, the beneficiary's got to go and do that for the bond. Okay? Otherwise, we stop the bond automatically. Okay? Your financial institution should remind you. If they don't, you go in and tell them. Okay? So the bond, the lifetime limit on bond is $20,000. So that's $90,000 that you can get from the Government of Canada. Okay, these are the income levels from the start of the program. These are the income levels for $1,000 of bond each year. Okay? This is the phase, the amount where the bond becomes 0. And this is the 3-to-1 or 2-to-1, or if you're above it, 1-to-1. Okay? I wouldn't worry about this too much. We do this automatically. You open the plan, okay? Make a contribution. We're going to pay grant. We're going to pay any bond to which the beneficiary is entitled. And then in February, what are we going to do? Send a statement of entitlement, right? And that will help you plan for what you want to, how much of a contribution you want to make that year. Okay, so carry forward was announced in Budget 2010, and it took effect in January of 2011. So beginning with the oldest entitlement, the beneficiary will receive grant at the matching rate of 300% until all those entitlements are used. Then again, we go back to the oldest entitlement and give all matching rates at 200% until those are used. And finally, we will go to the oldest at 100% and get them. $10,500 a year. Your statement of entitlement will tell you how to maximize that. There are other things that you have to be aware of. Rollovers. I know that earlier there was a bit of talk about this. It wasn't quite exact. Money coming from a TFSA is like a regular contribution. It will attract grant. The contribution that you make will attract grant because it's after tax dollars anyway. Okay? However, Rsp rollovers, if a beneficiary's parent or grandparent upon whom they were dependent dies, money from that individual's Rsp can be rolled over into the Rdsp. No taxes paid, but it counts against your $200,000 contribution limit, but it does not attract grant. Okay? And when the money comes out of a plan, we'll be talking about this later, you pay tax on any Rsp rollovers. Resp rollovers. Now this one, I'm going to advise you, don't do it. Okay? I worked for Resps before this program started, so I know about Resps. In order to qualify for this member, the beneficiary must be named on the Resp. Okay? They must meet existing age and residency requirements in relation to the Rdsp contributions. As well, one of the following conditions must be met. The beneficiary has a severe and prolonged mental impairment that can reasonably be expected to prevent the beneficiary from pursuing post-secondary education. Or the Rsp has been in existence for at least 10 years, and this may be in the case of a family plan. Each beneficiary is at least 21 and not pursuing a post-secondary education. Or the final one, the Rsp has been in existence for more than 35 years. So the beneficiary has to be named on the Rsp, and then there's a bunch of conditions. However, the money that is rolled over from an Resp is only the money that is part of the accumulated income payment. That is earnings on the Resp. Okay, they're usually not that great. And the nominal tax rate is about 40%. You're better off paying the 40% on that AIP and then taking the remainder and putting it in the Rdsp and getting at least 1-to-1 or 2 to 1 or 3 to 1, right? Now, contributions to an RESP are actually the property of the subscriber, i.e. that remains mom and dad's money. And you can do what you want with that, and you can take that money and you can put it in and it gets grant paid to it. So it's only the AIP portion, it's only the earnings of the RESP that you get rolled over. So I would suggest you might want to talk with a financial planner, and you might want to pay the 40% tax on that AIP and then put it in an RDSP. Just a little tip that I think would help you out. Yes?
Unit RESP, you can transfer to RESP.
RESP, yes, but it's only the accumulated income payment. Okay, it's the earnings on the RESP that get transferred to an RDSP without paying tax. So you would save 40% tax, but you don't get grant on it. So, like I say, you're probably better off paying the tax, you know, because if it were 50%, okay, and you were only getting 1 to 1, well, you might want to consider that. But it's 40%, so you've got 60%, and you get that same amount, so you're to the good by not rolling it over. Okay? Okay. To all good. Oh, did I miss something? Oh, yes. Okay. To all good things, there are downsides. The RDSP is a long-term savings plan, okay? The assistance holdback amount is all grant and bond that is paid into the RDSP in the last 10 years. And it helps ensure that the RDSP is not used as a checking account. That's not what it is. It's a long-term savings plan. Before grant and bond vests and belongs to the beneficiary, it must reside in the RDSP for 10 years. Any grant and bond that is paid into an RDSP within the previous 10 years from today is subject to repayment to the Government of Canada if one of a number of things happens. If the beneficiary dies, date of death, we want the grant and bond back from the previous 10 years. Any that's paid in the previous 10 years. But you get to keep all earnings and you get to keep contributions. And this is one of the reasons it's important to have a will for your beneficiary, because they may have a sum of money that's rather sizable. Okay? And you don't want that to go into probate and be dispersed by the province, and it takes 4 years. We've already seen that a number of times. So it's important to make sure that there's a will. Okay? If the RDSP is closed for one reason or another, there are a number of reasons for that. One is that the RDSP is deregistered, or the beneficiary is no longer DTC eligible. If the beneficiary's DTC ends and it does not get renewed, always appeal if they say no. If it does not get renewed, you pay back any grant and bond paid in the last 10 years. Okay? We do have a special option where if your child, if the beneficiary is likely to be DTC eligible again in the future, you can apply to have the plan remain open for 5 years. And then when they become DTC eligible, it just reverts to being a regular RDSP. We also have some special situations. In recognition of the greater immediate need for RDSP beneficiaries with a shortened life expectancy to access savings, upon attestation from a medical doctor, a beneficiary with a shortened life expectancy is given more flexibility to withdraw assets without requiring the repayment of the grants and bonds. Withdrawals made at any time, so you elect to do that. A medical doctor has to say that the beneficiary is likely to die within the next 5 years. Withdrawals will not trigger repayment of CDS grant and bond, provided that the total of all taxable portions of the withdrawal does not exceed $10,000 annually. So no new contributions can happen. except for Rsp rollovers in this period. Okay? No, that's on loss of DTC, sorry. So, if the beneficiary loses DTC, they have the option of having the plan remain open. They apply for an election. The doctor says that within the next 5 years, there's a good likelihood that the beneficiary will be DTC eligible again. During this period, you can make withdrawals subject to regular rules. You can't make new contributions. The only new contribution that can be made is an Rsp rollover. You can't make Rsp rollovers, but you can make Rsp rollovers. Okay? Payments. You wanted to know all about payments. They're very complicated. They're very complicated. Okay. If the specimen plan that your Rdsp is a part of allows it, an ad hoc withdrawal can be made at any time. What a withdrawal does do is trigger repayment at a rate of 3-to-1 of the amount of withdrawal of any grant and bond paid in the last 10 years, up to the total of all grant and bond paid in the last 10 years. Not a good idea. Unless there's extenuating circumstances, you don't want to do this. It's a long-term savings plan. Withdrawals are limited by a formula found in the Income Tax Act, and in most cases cannot exceed 10% of the assets, but not including the assistance holdback amount. So 10% of the assets, any grant that's been in the plan for more than 10 years, any bond that's been in the plan for more than 10 years, all earnings in the plan, all rollovers, all contributions, but not grant and bond that's been in the plan for less than 10 years. Okay? So up to 10%. The other thing is, withdrawals must commence by the end of the year the beneficiary turns 60. We stop paying grant and bond on December 31st of the year in which the beneficiary turns 49. December 31st of the year the beneficiary turns 49 is the last time to make a contribution or apply for bond where you will get paid grant and bond. Okay? Yeah, okay. At age 60, the payments are prescribed by the Income Tax Act and they must be annual. Disability assistance payments or lifetime disability assistance payments, the two types, are made up of proportional amounts of the money held in the Rdsp at the time of the payment. And this means a proportional amount of the grant, of the bond, contributions, earnings, and rollovers. The taxable portion is made up of everything that's not a regular contribution. Okay? And the financial institution should withhold that. And the portion of DAP or LDAP that is made up of the original contributions is not taxable. Those were after-tax dollars when they went in. I don't like talking about this, but it's important. If there are more private contributions than government contributions at the start of a calendar year, then there is no limit on the amount of money that can be withdrawn from the plan. If, however, there are more government contributions, i.e. grant and bond, then there are private contributions at the start of the year, then it is limited to 10% of the funds in the plan or a formula, whichever is greater. Do I want to talk about when the beneficiary is 27? Yeah, I better. Okay. Beneficiary can go into the bank even though they're not the holder at the age of 27 and make a withdrawal. Talk to your bank about it. Be careful. Okay? Talk to your bank about it. Okay? And I always want to talk about estate planning. I suggest you go down the hall. This is important. It really is important. Okay? The Rdsp is the property of the beneficiary. It is important that the beneficiary have a clearly defined will. Okay? As well, okay, the other thing, mom and dad, we die before our children in most cases. Make some form of plan that someone's going to take over the Rdsp and administer it should you pass. It's important. I know it costs money. It's part of the whole planning thing. Because if you die and you are the holder, after the second year, the end of the year following the year of your death, if a new holder isn't named, and it must be a legal representative, then that plan gets closed. Okay?
What do you mean by a legal representative?
It's got to be, it can't be a brother or sister unless they are appointed by a court. Unless a court is a petition to make it the brother and sister. It's got to be their legal representative.
That's a power of attorney.
More than a power of attorney, it's got to be a legal representative.
Oh, power of the
Legal guardian.
That can be a brother and sister?
Yes, but you've got to go to a court and get it. Yes. Okay? You can't just make it, it's not, a power of attorney is something different. Okay? Yes.
And it costs
Yes, and we are encouraging provinces to set up arrangements like in British Columbia where they have representation agreements, et cetera, but even that isn't cheap. So, okay, it's got to be someone legally responsible for them. Power of attorney. I can sign over a power of attorney to my sister tomorrow. I don't need to go to a court of law. You need a legal guardian, okay? Legally responsible. It goes back to provincial laws, unfortunately. Yes?
So if in my will, I've appointed the legal guardian for my daughter, does that suffice or not? Because I haven't been to.
I don't want to answer that. You may want to ask down the hall. It may, I can't say, it may in some jurisdictions, it probably doesn't in others. Okay? Okay, qualified investments, I usually talk about this quickly. Rdsp specimen plans say what qualified investments can happen. There's a whole bunch of things. Shop around. Get the 1-800 numbers. Go to the bank of your choice. Go to their website. See what they offer. You might want simple interest. You might want to put money in mutual funds. You might want to put money in stocks and bonds. All these things are offered. It's up to you and what you're comfortable with. Okay? And we do have contact information. I have brochures here as well. Please pick up a brochure. Contact information is at the back of the brochure. Okay? Thank you very much. Do you have any questions? I am probably the most knowledgeable person in Canada on RDSPs.
I would agree with that, sorry.